So now we continue our discussion with ethics. As you remember, in the last lecture, we have studied about the difference between three interrelated terms: values, morality, and ethics. And we said that from the next one, we'll be starting with introduction to ethics. So, in this particular lecture, we'll study about ethics and its scope. So, ethics is, as we told earlier, ethics is nothing but moral philosophy. Moral philosophy, as we said, ethics is a critical examination of morality. For more details, you can visit the last lecture, in which we said that philosophy is about uh, discussion, about critical examination, about holistic thinking, analysis of any topic. And in ethics, we holistically analyze morality. Ethics per se is one of the branches of philosophy. Philosophy is basically divided into four parts: uh, metaphysics, epistemology, logic, and ethics. So, ethics is one of the important branches of philosophy. So, as we'll progress in the course, we'll see it has borrowed a lot of things from a lot of ideas and insights from philosophy. And yeah, so we'll talk about the philosophical aspect of morality in ethics. Next, ethics, simplistically speaking, ethics is a systematic study of the decision between right and wrong action to achieve the highest good. As in, the target of ethics is to achieve summum bonum, or which is called chief good, and to achieve that chief good, the required action, whether that particular action is right or wrong, is analyzed and studied in ethics. Next, principle of humanism. Humanism per se is a philosophy about humans. Uh, just to explain you a bit, humanism comes from more so from philosophers like Protagoras, who said that man is the measure of all things. Uh, Earlier, in times of Greek philosophy, in times of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and even the modern philosophy, they used to uh, determine the larger truth, the transcendental truth. For them, the truth was something which existed outside this world. But from the existentialist philosopher and more contemporary philosophy, humanism was at the core. So, this humanism believes that everything is there for humans. Once humans exist, first of all, human exists. So, whatever right or wrong is decided based upon the natural law, the principles of humanism. It talks about the dignity of human beings. It talks about the essence of being a human. It talks about whatever natural rights one human is born with. So ethics, as we have studied and will be continuing to study it, ethics focuses on humans, and it's about others. Reasoning is involved, as we already told. So humanism is the core philosophy in ethics. It's one of the basic doctrine, you can say. And as we studied earlier and will be studying, ethics is different from values, morality, and we have studied difference between value and morality earlier. In the coming lectures, we'll see that how ethics is different from law, how ethics is different from religion, Whatever religion or law says, that might be ethical or might not be. We'll see that ethics is different from law. A certain action may be legal, but it may not necessarily be ethical. Next, we come to this famous example of trolley car or train or whatever you can assume, a wagon. See, this is one of the very pertinent examples being used in the lectures of ethics, even in Harvard University, and in many of the books you can find this example. Supposedly, this is a situation in which supposedly there is a trolley car and it is moving. The main course of the trolley car is this way, and there are 5 person, 1 2 3 4 5, there are 5 people standing on the main trolley course. And this driver in the trolley car, when he could see that there are 5 people there who cannot get out of who will be killed if the trolley moves on the same course, he has this option of deviating his trolley car in this direction, where he finds that there are 2 people standing. So one of the question comes that what will the driver of this trolley car do, whether he will keep on running on the same course, same railway track, or whether he would deviate. So, responses would vary. There would be two kind of people. One would say that there is no particular wrong done by these 2 people. It will not be right per se to deviate and kill these two. So this trolley car should keep on moving on the same course and kill these 5 people. But some other group of people, they would say that it is analyzing the harm benefit thing, the cost benefit, it would be wiser to kill these 2 people and change the course and kill these 2 people to save the life of 5, right? So these are two different groups. They, nothing is right or wrong. See, we'll come to the theories of these ethics. We'll see that who will prefer this kind of action and who would prefer this changing of the course. So based upon this broad division of decisions, either to kill these 5 people or these 2 people, there are broadly two schools in ethics. And we'll come to that. Just keep this example at the back of your mind. So basically, these the two schools are, one school which says that uh, the trolley should keep on moving on the same direction and kill these 5 people. These are the people who give more emphasis on the consequence. For them, no, sorry, these are the people who would say that means is important. Means is important here, because this is the course of the trolley. You just can't change its course. You just can't go for the wrong means to achieve your end of just killing 2 people instead of 5, right? These people who lay emphasis on means, who would say that the trolley should continue on the same course and kill these 5 people, are deontologists. The other class of people who would say that ends is important, and for saving of life of 5, these two should be killed, are laying more emphasis on consequences. So they would prefer deviating this trolley on this path. These are consequentialist or teleologist. So comes the two broad school of philosophy. One is deontology and the second is teleology. But we'll go into the background of this. So the two schools of ethics basically derive their origin from the two schools of philosophy. The first one is realism and the second one is idealism. So realists believe that object exists independent from the subject, means that object is something which is knowable and subject is something who knows. So knowable exists independent from the knower. These are the people who believe in realism. For them, that means if object exists independent from the subject, that means for these kind of people there exists an external world. So they say that if I know a world or worldly object, then it exists independently from me. So that means that there has to be certain kind of objective set of standards independent from myself, and so these objective set of standards would govern the actions, whether the action is right or wrong. So that is the belief of deontology: existence of external world, objective set of rules and standards, deontology. So deontology, the school of deontology is popularized mainly by Immanuel Kant. Next comes the idealist. Idealists believe that object and subject cannot be separated, as in knower and knowable cannot be separated. If I know an object called pencil, then pencil is a part of me. That's why world is a part of me. Only ideas exist. So in that sense, for an idealist, there cannot be any objective set of rules, that rule is a part of me, right? So they give a lot of emphasis on the end result, the consequences. They reflect upon the consequences and then they decide whether that particular action is right or wrong. So these are called consequentialist or teleologist. This particular theory is also called utilitarianism. The basic tenet of utilitarianism is greatest good for the greatest number. This particular theory was popularized by Jeremy Bentham and J.S. Mill. We'll come in detail about teleology and deontology in a separate lecture, apart from other schools of ethics and philosophy. Now, next we come to scope of ethics. So, in scope, like in scope for any subject, we define that what is to be studied in ethics, where ethics comes into picture. Whether particular action could be called ethical or not is determined what at all is studied in ethics. So, first of all, just trying and reflecting upon life. In life there are two kinds of situation. There's something called facticity or circumstances which are given to us, like our name, like the family, the religion we belong to, the society in which we are in. There are few things which we can't change. Those are given to us, that is called circumstances. And apart from this facticity, there are most of the things, most of our actions in which we need to make a choice. Whenever there are alternatives in front of us and we make a choice, then decisions comes into picture. And whenever we take a decision, there's bound to be a conflict. The decision could be a personal decision, a professional decision, or the decision that impacts the society. Supposedly, for example, on a personal front, uh, I might face during one of the days in which I have an interview or civil services examination. I might face that situation in which while going towards that interview, interview venue, I find a person known to me or might not be known to me, who happened to meet in an accident. So I have that choice there, whether I should attend the interview or whether I should save a life, save that life of the person. So there's a kind of personal conflict there. Or supposedly professional example of professional conflict could be supposedly certain a famous case study of UPSC, when they asked that an old lady, she comes she comes for your help, and regarding certain governmental scheme, and she doesn't have the paper, although you know that she's an old lady and you have to be compassionate to her, you have to have an empathetic character, but she doesn't have the paper, the documents to show, to prove that she actually deserves that scheme, the benefits of that scheme. So professional versus professional conflict kind of, he could either go by the objective rules, or he could be compassionate enough to help her. So that kind of a conflict, similarly societal conflict. So there are what broadly I want to convince here, that there are two kinds of actions. There are something which is given, like sun rises in the east, that is given, but there are choices of an individual in any action. And whenever there's a choice, there's a conflict, there's a decision involved, and then rightness or wrongness of the action comes into picture. So the factors which are involved in making this choice could be largely two: the external set of factors and internal set of factors. Either I do an action governed by what is the legal opinion, whether I am driven by the ends perspective, whether the consequences drive my action, or whether I am going by my own internal conscience, my voice of conscience, which is internal to me, or whether I am being driven not by the ends but by the means part. So that is internal. And besides all of this, there's something called creative morality. Creative morality is something which we'll study later. It is every individual, as we have studied in the last lecture, what is morality? Morality is given to an individual from an external surrounding, but then individual, over the course of time, over by applying his own reasoning, he goes on to create his own morality, which we'll study in Kohlberg's theory of post-conventional reasoning. So those are the things which are internal to us. So external and internal factors drives our choice and our actions. Now, any action that is a particular action has an objective, and according to the objective, there's bound to be a code of conduct for that action. For example, for a medical professional, saving life is the objective, and for that, what are the code of conduct? In what way should he behave? That Hippocratic oath of the doctors and similarly for a person who is who has to save the environment, he should aspire for actions like which are conservative in nature, which leads to conservation of species, which promotes sustainable development. So ethics here emphasizes the code of conduct to attain a particular objective, like we had studied in the last slide, that ethics aims to achieve the chief good is the objective there, and what is the course of action that is determined by ethical standards. Now, as we said, ethics comes into picture whenever there is a human action involved. Human action means uh, there are two kinds of action of any particular individual. The action could be a deliberate action, when an individual knowingly makes a choice to do that particular action. And there are certain actions which are very habitual in nature, which are very which are done in a way of reflex, which we do not particularly intend or make a choice to do. Like for example, an action by a child, he is not very much mature to take decisions, to make a choice, so ethics does not comes into picture in the action of children, or action of insane person, or certain habitual actions which in which we do not pay heed much to choice. So ethics always comes into picture whenever there is a choice, whenever there is something called human action. So actions are of two types: actus humanus, deliberate human action, and actus hominis, which are very undeliberate, like action of child, action of insane person, or very habitual routine kind of action of humans. These actions of human have largely three kinds of motive, like self-regard, duty, or altruistic love. Supposedly, for example, you are preparing for civil services, so there could be three kinds of motive: either you are doing it for yourself, for the power, for that red cherry top, which no more exists, or you are doing it just because your parents have asked it for, you are doing a duty towards your parents, or the third motive could be you want to serve the society. So the intentions, the motives behind an action actually govern the ethical principles, whether the last one, altruistic love, is more ethical, or duty is more ethical, or self-regard is more ethical. Now, the theorist Thomas Aquinas, in his masterpiece Summa Theologica, he has given three conditions for human action. First one is knowledge, second one is voluntariness, and third one is the action should be freely done, or in other words, one has to have choice in case of doing one particular action. So if all these three conditions are met, then and only then we can say that this particular action is human action, and only in this particular case ethics is involved. You can talk about ethics when human action is involved. So first we come to knowledge. uh, uh, Aquinas says that there should be sufficient and critical knowledge about the action involved, about the consequences of that action. Like for example, if someone is driving a car under the effect of marijuana, and he has this prior knowledge that marijuana consumption might have some adverse effects on his driving, then he has that particular knowledge, even to that extent he is ethically liable if he meets with an accident afterwards, right? So he has certain knowledge in that sense. Next one is voluntariness. In this particular example, this particular individual who is in the effect of marijuana, he voluntarily offers to drive that car, right? And it's not like he's forced to drive that car, right? So his voluntariness is involved. And the third one is the choice, the freely done part of it. Like for example, that continuing with this example, he has this choice either to drive or not to drive. So he has this knowledge of the possibility of getting involved into an accident. He's doing it voluntarily, and he's intentionally making this choice of driving even though he is in the effect of marijuana. So this particular action of his would be termed, in the domain of ethics, he would be liable for committing a crime of murder or injuring certain person if he meets with the accident. Supposedly, on the contrary, if I give an example, that a particular educated individual, he plants a bomb somewhere, but someone would say that that person has killed so many of people because he has planted that bomb. But supposedly you come to know that someone kidnaps his family members. In that particular case, this individual has the knowledge, this individual is doing that action voluntarily, but then this individual does not have a choice, because his choice is restrained to an extent. Either he would allow his family members to die, or he would take the lives of others. So his choice is restricted. So to that particular extent, he is not ethically very much liable as the person who intentionally commits the heinous act of terrorism. So this is about the scope of ethics. We'll continue about the scope and consequences of ethic. And as in the first line, as you see, ethics is about human action and morality. So we'll continue for the morality of human action, the circumstances, purpose, and object of human action, where ethics is involved. And we'll continue to discuss more examples and applications of all these cases, which you can be asked anytime in the case studies. Thank you so much.